Today, we're demoing the crazy new update for Koala Sampler, which features a mixer and 16 FX. Can it compete with the SP404 and the MPC at a fraction of the cost? We'll find out. Today, I'm going to show a song that I've been working on once the new update came out and just show some of the effects, the routing of the effects and things like that. Let's talk layout. So when you first open Koala, it's still what it used to be. Got volume and pitch. You've also got mixers on each sound, so you can take out the low end. I have a Bill Evans sample. That's what this song is built around. So you can do, there's only, per pad, there's only a 3 EQ. So you can do notches, and then you can do high and low pass. Also, you can do tone, attack, release, things like that. There's one shot, and then there's that time stretching, which I was talking about with Bendu, which you can set to the BPM that you're working with. But what's new is over on Perform. This is what you usually get, a bunch of like master effects, kind of like the SP404. If you go down here at this little mixer, you click that. Now you've got 4 bus channels and a master. So you can technically, because of the effects, master. Let me play the sound a little bit. So I have a drum bus, which is, I believe, bus B. I also have the bass going through it. You can also do, they added sidechain, which you can't do on the SP404. So you can sidechain, that's just bass, getting sidechained by the drums. So let me solo those drums again, and I'll show you. So now you can compress. My favorite effect is the bit cooker, because we were talking about this last week, but there's a sample rate, bit depth, jitter, and mix. So let me mute it. Hear how much more high end there is to it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you put that on, I've got it on 8.4 for sample rate and 12 bit depth. But let's just go back up. You go sample rate back to normal. It's a lot more pristine, but if you want to get that old school MPC style and things like that, go with the lower bit rate or sample rate and then bit depth. I like 16 or 12, but it kind of emulates, what was it, the SP1200 and things like that, which are in that much lower resolution sound. Then over on bus A, which I believe is my melody stuff, yeah, I've got compressor. The compressor's great. Delay, there's actually 2 types of delay. This is the one that you can sync to the BPM. And I've also got bit cooker, but you can shut that off. A little noisy, but sounds good. And then there's also, what were you saying, Jan? Like?
Good noise. It's the good stuff.
Yeah, good noise. There's also this warble. So let me shut that off. And then let me turn that on, and let's go. Just super extreme. So you can really destroy the sound if you want to go for that. You don't have to go for this destroyed sound. That's just my preferred way of setting all the sounds. I really like the fact that it's got a sidechain, because I mean, I think MPCs have that, especially the new MPCs. You know, like you could vouch for that because you've got the live too, I believe. But SP404s, first of all, you only have 2 bus effects plus the more master 3 and 4 effects. But here you can do EQ per pad, which the SP can't do. And then you can do these 4 effects, but you've also got the master effects. But it's got sidechain, which is awesome. So it can really help control the mix. Like you can take, as we've talked about before, when it comes to mixing bass and drums, you can sidechain the bass to the drums and add a little more headroom. And if you really want that more housey kind of like ducking sound, you can do that too. On the SP, there's some ways to work around it, but you're kind of not able to do it like for real. You can just kind of sort of emulate it with a lot of compression and things like that.
So the new features are mainly just the mixer and the effects, right?
That's a good question, Jan, like, because there's now basically 3 tiers of Koala. There's the base Koala, which I believe is $5. There's the Samurai update, which is another $5, and then there's this new mixer update, which is another $5. So technically, to get this full thing, the Samurai adds the stem splitting, piano roll right here, per track EQ, I believe, is with Samurai. But what this new one adds is all of these effects and this mixer. So all of these effects are not available if you have either the base Koala or the Samurai Koala. You have to get this new one. And I should go over all the ones they have, because there's some really cool ones. They've got auto pan, band pass, bit cooker, which is my favorite. I love bit cooker for that like gritty dark sound. It's awesome. We've got the compressor. The compressor is great. Delay, drive. The drive gets pretty nasty. We'll go over that. EQ, filter, which has a good resonance to it. Flanger, free verb. That's the one to me that's a little weak. The free verb. It's probably my like least favorite reverb, but it's there. It's nice on a drum bus because you can kind of get a little room reverb to it. High cut, limiter, low cut, meter, mic, phaser, pitch shift, sidechain, tape delay. That's the other delay. Utility and warble. The warble's really fun. That's the one I showed that gets that like vinyl sound. Now let's check out this drive. I have it on the master. Let me just put the mix all the way up and put that to 0. Let me play this again. Oh, I gotta shut that warble down a bit. We don't need it that destroyed. Okay, so this drive, check this out. I mean, it's just nasty. But if you put the mix down, you can get it just kind of as a parallel distortion, which is nice to have if you want to grit up everything. Let's go back to some drums. Yeah, so, oh, let me show the filter too, actually. Like I said, nice resonance. And then if you just tap things, they go back to bass. It's a nice way if you're moving quick, like in a live performance or jamming, just tap them and they go right back to their original sound. There's also an LFO on the filter, and you can change low pass, high pass, talk box, and wop. So there's a lot there.
As someone who uses Koala and has used Koala since you found it, and it's been a while now, what have you found the biggest change, or if there has been any change to your workflow and kind of like the quality of your tracks since this new update?
A lot. So I think first, the first big change was when they added that EQ per pad. That was huge because now if you have samples that have a lot of low end that you don't need, you could just cut it off. Or if you're doing bass and you want to just cut off the high end, that was great. And then adding these bus effects has changed things drastically because now it can be more like how I work in the DAW, where I can have a drum bus and I can compress the drums. I can limit the drums. I can add all of these parallel sounds and things like that. Then for melodic sounds, I can have a bus of that where I have reverb and things like that. I can have the bass sidechained, which on my SP beats, I can't do that. On Koala, I used to not be able to, and now I can. So it's a nice way to add headroom and get things to sound a little more pleasant in the mix. And I got to say, with the sounds of these plugins, I think it's possible to master within Koala. If you just want to do like a simple master of, like I have here, I have EQ, compressor, free verb, and limiter. And the free verb on the master is just 0.36%. You guys know on masters, I like to have a very small amount of reverb just to add a little live room sound to the thing. And it's so trace. You typically, you don't hear it, but it's just there psychoacoustically.
Psychoacoustic effect, isn't it?
You just took the words out of my mouth, my friend. Exactly. So I'll show you the settings I have. All I did on this one, because it's very muddy, was I added, let me start playing it again so you can hear it. I added some high boost. I could take out some mud over here, maybe up the bass if I really want to go for that like lo-fi sound. And then the compressor, drop it a little bit more. And I just have it a low ratio, long attack, long release. You can also do makeup gain if you want. I did not because I have reverb. Let me just show you. Here's the reverb all the way up. It sounds terrible, right? But you just have it really tiny. Just psychoacoustically, it makes it sound a little more gelled, a little more real. And you can move that up or down if you wanted to. You can put it before the EQ, anything like that. And then I just have a limiter doing a little bit up and bring it up a little bit. So that's my little master chain for Koala, but let's just bypass them all so you can hear the difference. I don't know if there's a way to bypass and select all of them at once, so I apologize. I have to do this the slow way, but this is what it sounds like without any master effects. I'll add the EQ, brings up the high end a little bit, bring that compressor, everything's kind of vibing a little bit more. Reverb, and then limiter brings up the volume at the end. And since I'm not using the bottom one, if I were to move these up, I could actually add the meter, and I could see. I'll just put it at the front so you can see it. If you want to throw something out, drag it to the trash can, and then go to meter, so you can actually see spectrum, scope, and out of it, and the yeah. And that's before all of the master effects. So if I put it at the bottom, I think I can move them. No, you can't switch them like that thing, but you'd really be able to see like what levels are you hitting, how's the frequencies of the total things, do some more EQ. So for me personally, I think if you're just going for simple masters, or if you don't have any other alternative, you could use a chain like this. Let me zoom back in, I'm sorry. So this is my chain here. You can see EQ, compressor, reverb, limiter. That's a solid mastering chain just to kind of get a little bit. And you just really need to play with the effects and things like that. But yeah, Curtis, to get back to your question, having these buses drastically changes how I approach production on this, because it can be so much more nuanced than what it used to be, because you have per pad EQ, so you can get really gritty in there, and then you can do all these effects where you gel things together. I love the drum bus. Drum bus is like my secret weapon in my productions, and having it now again on this is awesome. And one of my favorite setups is Koala into SP, and then you kind of use them together. With Koala again now, you can really see a sample. So it's so easy to chop samples on here because you have your fingers. It's at the tip of your fingers, literally. Whereas with the SP, you have to twist knobs and it get kind of refined and things like that. But here you can zoom by pinching out, and then you can just select a sound right there. You can add some attack, add some release, changes the tone. You could time stretch it. I don't want that to be 16 bars, but we could do, let's say, 2 bars. And there's a few different algorithms for it. So that stretches it to the BPM I chose, which is 151. I have this sample. I think, like I said, it's a Bill Evans sample. But yeah, you can just move all these things really quickly. And then you could throw those samples now with some effects into the SP and then sequence in the SP. Or you could sequence with this piano roll and record right into there. So it's great standalone now, but together, I love the two. They just work really well together. But there's also stem separation, split stems, and I find the stem splitting compared to something like RipX, which we covered, or even Serato Studio, it's not as good, but it is there. David says sounds inspiring. FCC says gonna have to use Koala more. Sounds great now. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Fringes of Sound says I need an iPad. Definitely. I think Koala's on Android though as well.
It is, yeah.
David says iPads are so powerful now, even the 9th generation ones. This is a iPad Pro from I think 2017 or something, and it still runs this like a champ. Oh, that's the other thing too. I don't know if you can see it, but let me just zoom in really quick. Right above bus A, there's actually a CPU usage.
Oh yeah.
I know it's a little grainy. I'm having a little internet issue today. It looks like, but it is there. So if you're using, I mean, this is a lot of plugins or effects, and it's only at 19%. Let's see when we start playing it. 26%. It's bouncing between 20 and 26%. So even with 3 buses fully used and the main one, well, 4 almost fully used, it's still only at like 20%. A couple bits more in the chat. FCC says, I have one, but it's about 7 years old. Not sure Koala will work. Might have to give it a try. Check it out, because like I said, mine's from 2017. So let's see. David says, 9th gens are really reasonable now. Fringes says, I like the chopping function. Feels similar to Machine, but more focused and simplified. Yeah, I mean, all of these samplers have this type of stuff. They have the auto chop. SP has auto chop, and it's great. MPC definitely has auto chop. But real quick, I'll just show the auto chop. Let me, I've got this section frozen. So we'll just do, let me see if I have any. Yeah, so here's an empty pad of it. So we'll just do auto chop, and let's go. You can actually, so I have it on equal auto chop, 16 chops, and you can actually hear them and move them around a little bit. So I want that one to be there. Let's say this one here. And so you can clean it up. And then when you're good, you can set it to a choke group so that when you hit the next one, it will choke. We'll do that. We'll put it to 1. And then let's hit chop, and it should be right. There it is. So it just goes to the first empty one. So it actually starts way up here. And then even then, you can still maneuver the thing around from where you originally chopped it. So there's a lot of ways you can clean it up. But with the choke, you can see it just stops playing the previous one. And if you go, let's repitch. Let's go 3. Whoop. So yeah, the auto chop is a lot of fun. You can just chop it yourself. If you just want to chop things separately on your own, just move it over here and you can just repitch. You can change where it is. You can do all of that really easy.
For me, the problem with the iPad has always been sound. So there are some really good plugins. I'm thinking of the Moog ones and some
Yeah,
other
the
stuff
model.
that make really good sound. But as far as actually working in the iPad, it just never has really worked for me because everything just sounds too out of the packet, and I can't destroy sounds or crunch things the way that I normally would in order to get the kind of tonality that I want to work with. And this, for me, completely addresses all of that. You know, it lets you destroy stuff, rough things up a bit, and the sampling aspect, obviously, you know, you can resample, you can degrade, you can do all the things that you need to do so that what you're creating is actually close enough to the sound that it inspires you enough to do it. So this is a game changer for me. You know, the effects that they include in things like this, there are always those reverbs that you talk about that are, you know, really bright sort of reverbs that
It's not even that it's bright. Not to cut you off, but it's there's not much option to it. There's size, tone, dry, wet, and you can't choose, you know, room, plate, Valhalla, you know, anything like that.
Well,
there's nothing there.
Like, they usually don't go long enough. I've used it. I mean, I'm often using 40, 50-second reverbs. You know, when
There's no gate either. There's no gate. That's the other thing. But I do want to add, because you bring up a good point about the limitations. Koala did put up a Google form, like a submission that you can say, hey, you should add this effect, or you should try this effect. Like, they're open to receiving effects recommendations, and it sounds like they're going to try to implement them. So I noticed that. I'll see if I can find that form. They posted it on Twitter, so I'll try to find it. I didn't add it to the docket, unfortunately, but they did post that. So they're open to recommendations. So I may not like this reverb. I think it has some uses, but it sounds like if enough people, you know, put in the recommendation, I'm going after this to recommend
I like what they've chosen. I think they've chosen the right stuff. And I think really, if I know what kind of reverb I need, that's the sort of thing. I'd probably be finishing it off in the door anyway. Using
that's another really good point. Let me just show you guys something really cool that I love about Koala. If you go down, there's a few options: do, load, save as, record song. So you could just record like your playthrough, but there's also resample loop. So now you could take a full bus sound and resample it. But what I want to go to is export. You can export a current sample, all samples, current sequence, all sequences. So you could move just the sequences as they are to Ableton, a DAW, anything like that. You can also share the Koala song. That's what I did. I made this song on my phone and just shared it to my iPad, and it's all right there as I made it. But there's Ableton Drum Rack, Ableton Live Set. So you can just send it to Ableton. There's a ton you can do. Make it in here, throw it in the SP like that, or throw it in your DAW. It doesn't have to be Koala alone. It's so easy to move it around, and I think that's really awesome. I wanted to bring that up. We were talking about, Ian, like how you wouldn't finish in there. I mean, yeah, all these effects are great, but
brilliant.
The export options, there's so many types.
Let's see if anyone has been converted. If you are interested in this, if you're trying it out, like FCC is, for example, be curious to see what you end up making with it. Head over to our Discord. We can have a gander. People love showing the work in progresses there. So it's always nice to see what you guys are up to.